happening, Team Dog? My name's Nando Brown. This is Joe Rosie Haffenden, and we're from the School of Canine Science, and we're joined today by Alex Lato. Now, he's from Temprament Dogs. He's here basically to teach us real intensive week of bite work. So what we're going to do is try and answer some of your questions that we've already thrown up on Facebook and on Instagram.
But what we're here really to talk about mainly today is not the sport we're doing, which is Mondialing.
No.
But actually IGP?
Nowadays it's IGP, but it used to be IPO.
So Helen, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Bullgard, what are your thoughts on training a dog who has demonstrated behaviour like fearful aggression or biting people and things like this? And there's quite a few others, so Rachel Fletcher and a couple of others have also asked about kind of whether or not previous history of fear or aggression prevent a dog like that from working in these sorts of bite sports, and whether or not you can't train them if they're, essentially frightened of people.
I like to relate even to our human world or my experience, right? Doing martial arts, and this is what I call bite work in general when we are doing just as a hobby or just to promote confidence in dog. I call it karate for dogs, so hashtag karate for dogs on Instagram.
Nice. Nice.
And like martial arts help me to rebuild my confidence, the same we are doing with dogs. If the dog is afraid of people, being involved in protection dog sport will help massively in growing up that confidence to be around other people or strange people.
Yeah, and going into it in a little bit more detail, I remember we had a conversation over the week which I think kind of hammered it home to me a little bit, because to start with I was slightly sceptical about using a dog that was as fearful as Khaleesi was. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if this is the right thing. But you kind of hammered home the fact that actually what we're doing is we're teaching the dog to control the stimulus that they're frightened of.
Yes.
And that's like, when it comes down to it, that's the nitty gritty of it, isn't it? And that's what makes it so perfect for building confidence.
It is.
Giving them agency.
But disclaimer,
Yeah.
that not every helper or every decoy is the same. You do it with the wrong dog and the wrong helper, and we're not going to end up with a confident dog. We're going to end up with a fucking dog that's worse off, or even a biter.
It's a luxury to find someone that's not only science-based, but also really good at assessing a dog's emotional response at the time and then dealing with it adequately.
The helper work is that difficult that you have to read the dog's emotions on the go and respond to them very, very fast. Which, when your dog is in very high emotions, it can be a little bit challenging, right? So there is no time just to go and rethink, because consequence of the bad action can be very severe.
On Instagram, Mrs. Kimbo Spice.
Oh,
Sounds
hello.
sexy. Anyway, if you're interested in getting your dog into bite work, what are the things to look for or ask to make sure that you're hiring the right trainer or you're finding the right facility? Great question.
Visit few clubs. They should allow you just to watch the training. Just look if it's for you, if you are comfortable with the way how they are training their dogs. Look at the dogs if they're enjoying and they want to be on the field. This is another very, very important thing, right? Talk to your trainer about your goals.
Having watched how quickly Khaleesi's transformed this week, I really do think that it'd be nice if this does become more accessible for people. So there are more trainers and more helpers that are out there working with more challenging dogs for the sake of their confidence boost, rather than just for the sake of competition. Because I think that it's a really worthy way of working a dog.
Me and my friends, we have our sheepdog gangster group, right? So we are doing
Gangsters, I love it.
bite work with our TNT dogs, and those are our sheepdogs, so this size, but none of the shepherds. Confidence is a little bit like a muscle. You build it, you exercise it, and that will transfer also into other parts of the dog's life. Your decoy or helper has a little competition with your dog over a object, which is a sleeve or piece of bite suit, right? So it's not easy for the dog. So it's some sort of struggle or challenge, but the dog always wins. So if your dog was reacting to eye contact from the stranger, but during a bite session, your dog is quite very successful with all the shout, screams, hand movements, stick movements, etc., and comes out of it very much successful every single time, again, going back to the first example, what is just eye contact from the stranger? It's just nothing. Walk in the park.
Kath Hudson. I thought the whip was to test the dog's reaction to a weapon and whether they'd shy away from it or not. I've only ever seen them wave it around. They don't actually hit the dog with it, do they?
No, not at all. We use it in training, and you can use it in different fashions for the different reasons, right? So I use the whip to build the confidence around sounds because it's so unnatural sound. Also, it's some sort of sound that will make your dog a little bit excited and will more provoke to bark.
Increase
Arousal, right?
Increase arousal, right? So then the dog more likely will bark, and this is another use of the whip, right? But
I guess it also makes that context really clear. Because like, whenever I watch Alex work, I always think like he's a great example of showing people that you're developing such a specific context. The likelihood of the dog seeing anything similar to what he does on the field in the outside world is slim to none.
It's not gonna happen.
No one's going to come in.
And I'm not being funny.
Like with a
if
whip.
somebody starts fucking flailing a whip at me.
And anyway, which brings me to a different question, going back to something you said a while ago, and not something that someone's asked us specifically, but it's a question that always gets brought up in my seminars to discuss, which is, can other breeds of dog do this that aren't guarding and like fighting breeds? Like if you were to get a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, could you train it to do competitive bite work?
Maybe not competitive, because they wouldn't be allowed to compete even then. If they would go through the round and make it clean, they wouldn't be allowed to compete in official IGP or IPO trial. However, like I mentioned before, I'm working with all sorts of breeds, right? So from Kelpies, Border Collies, etc., just to boost their confidence. We are not aiming for the competition, but we are training it for other reasons.
Yeah.
So that can be some sort of hobby or activity you can perform with your dog.
And do you think that'd be a good thing if it did become more like agility? So obviously in agility you've got your world championships and you've got people who compete to a very high level, but then you've also got fun agility that loads of dog trainers can learn to teach people to use those skills around with everyday dogs, just to boost confidence or to help them control distance control and all that kind of stuff. Could you see your sport kind of
I
going
strongly believe it should be accessible for regular dogs.
Okay, cool.
Right? Or
It should. I agree. It should. It would be great to see it more accessible. But it has to be with the right fucking person that's got the right skill set.
Of course.
I don't want a fucking random dog trainer throwing a fucking pillow on their arm and going, whoa, fucking waving whips at dogs.
Yeah.
And my own experience, I have been to some sports clubs which are fucking brutal. I've been to some brutal sports clubs. So it's not.
This is why I mentioned at the beginning. Go without the dog. Look at the training.
But a lot of owners aren't going to know what they're looking for. Like they're not gonna if they're getting fucking if they're getting like bowls out and smashing on top of the dog, fair enough. But when you've got
fair enough?
Fair enough, as in any owner's going to be able to go, this is not the club for me.
Oh, right.
But if they're going to a few and they're watching someone like you work and then someone who's less qualified and less experienced work, as a complete novice person, how are they going to see the differences?
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
But that's not. That isn't just for bite work. That's for any fucking dog training.
The advice would be ask around and expect to travel.
Yeah.
That would be the advice at the moment, wouldn't it? If you're going to find a decent decoy, ask around people who have done it, people who know about it, and expect to travel. What kind of temperament would be sought after for protection sports? You're looking for a dog, adult dog. What are you looking for?
So basically, if your dog likes to chase things and bite things and bark at the things, that can make it a good material for a sport dog.
Basically,
right?
if you get kicked out of any other sports, come to this.
If they don't want you in agility field, they hate you on
We'll have
these
ya.
things.
We'll have ya.
Come to us.
So Kelly Louise Cartridge says, the most common question I hear is, does it make the dog more likely to bite someone out of the sports environment? I'd love to hear an educated and factual answer to this provocative question and to see if my opinion, based off my own logic, is off the mark or not.
If you have a Scooby that never did anything wrong in his life, because of that training will
He'd be more likely to bite.
more prompt to bite or react not very good way.
Yeah.
Right? So answering that question, I didn't experience that. However, I truly believe there is a chance to it, right? We are showing the dog how to use the mouth. So in some sort of context, your dog may just go to that skill if he hadn't that skill before.
That's a good answer.
Right? It may be pushed to that situation, right? So it might be it. However, chances that IPO sport dog will become a truly protection dog are very little.
Question from Hez Clicks, which is there a particular temperament or trait in a dog that makes them a poor candidate for bite work? Is there something that the dog does these things and you go, that he's not going to enjoy this, he's not going to be good at this?
I think this is one of the things you will never know before you try it.
Okay.
Right? So
I think that's a great answer.
What is it that lets you know when you go? At what point do you go? This dog should not be doing bite work. This dog
if we attempt to training a dog and the dog clearly doesn't enjoy it, right? Clearly doesn't want to be there or doesn't want to come back there. Like with Khaleesi, for example, right? She came on the field like emotions, right? What we are doing here? But she came back, right? The next day,
not even the next day, the next session.
Next session she was coming, and the third day she didn't want to leave, right?
Yeah.
She would drag you back, right? So this is the indication the dog enjoys that. This is, feels good about whatever is happening on the field. If you have the dog that is not really enjoying it at all, then maybe it's not the right sport for that dog. And if you have two kids and one is chess player and one is rugby player, right? And you will take the first one to the rugby field, clearly may not enjoy it, right? It's not for that specific kid, right? Same if you will take the rugby player and ask him to sit next to the chess. You can drop M&Ms to keep him sitting over there, but that can create still a lot of frustration that something will fly away, right? Sooner or later, right? So, but again, I've seen the dogs that wouldn't play with the owners at all, wouldn't show any confidence, wouldn't, in general speaking, owners would assume it's not for my dog, right? And then it happened totally different.
Try and find out.
So, thanks a lot. Someone else, I can't pronounce her name. So, thanks a lot, Lyslot Boesma. Liselot? Lesalot? Is this a name you're familiar with?
No, I think it's a Dutch name, isn't it?
Lesalot Boesma. So, I'm curious of your thoughts about the emotional aspect of the, in brackets, wanted behaviour that is initially being triggered by the decoy. So, initially being triggered by the decoy, I think that's the important bit of that sentence. The amount of arousal suggests that emotions are active. Fine. Do you think that the aggression is being driven by frustration because there is a temporary form of restraint and/or because of the need to protect a resource, in this case a high value family member, or fear responding to a threat to a personal safety, or care, protecting very close family, okay, not offspring, but, or play, enjoying practicing behaviours and confirming social bonds, or desire to kill, prey drive, enjoying seeking, or perhaps the anticipation of pain, which I know is highly unlikely / not possible, in the company of you guys, but question mark. And if practiced enough, will the emotional aspect ever fade? So someone's been reading Panso.
If fear was the emotion that was being initially triggered by the decoy, then you would want it to fade. The whole point would be to build that dog's confidence, so it is not fearful in the long run. In fact, you're looking for the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
My problem is that we're trying to squeeze this into a framework.
Not for this.
Not for this.
Yeah, agree. And that's the trouble with all these theories, isn't it? Is that if you try and look at everything through that framework, through that lens, you can squish everything into any theory. But that's just not. That's not life. Life doesn't work like that. So it doesn't. You can't. There isn't one true pure theory that's the right theory for dog behaviour. There's a million, and you need to understand all of them, or as many of them as you can, and see through them all in different ways. And this one doesn't fit what we're doing here.
So I think I might have an answer for this, because if we're going to look at it through that framework, it could have been any of them.
Yes.
It depends on the decoy, it depends on the dog. If we look at just our dogs to start with, we've got Aya, who came out and saw it as play. We had the toy, she's now running up and getting the thing. There's no concern there, there's no worry there, because the pressure is so gentle coming in, layered in. Where in comparison to Khaleesi, who didn't come out and go, oh fuck it, we're going to play a game. She came out and went, whoa, hang on a minute. And I'm not afraid of saying there was a little bit of fear there.
No, and then we stimulated her predatory action sequence with the use of a little fluffy, and she...
Boom. She was... So you've got...
something on.
Yeah, but the fear was still there because it was an unknown male. Look at the confidence that she's got now. Like...
So yes, the emotional response that's built, the behaviour is built from initially can change, is what we're saying, and should change in many but not all cases.
But not necessarily fade. Sometimes we want it to grow, and sometimes we want it to fade.
Yeah, or sometimes we want it it's just a change. We want to keep the level of emotion. We just want to change the feeling so that the dog is feeling something else.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
And sometimes we're happy with what the dog comes out with, and we want to keep it there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily fit into all these boxes.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, isn't it?
I think so.
So shall I just read the end bit of this question?
Because the meat is at the end.
The meat is at the end. So he says, so my question is, as far as you're concerned, is there no place for positive punishment or negative reinforcement in dog training / keeping animals and members of the public safe? So what he was doing to set the scene, what he was talking about was, is setting a dog up to fail, followed by correcting that dog in a way that will often increase tension, fear or agitation. And then the environmental stimulus often becomes a predictor for the punishment. And so he's saying, do we think there is a place for using punishment and negative reinforcement in a way, when it comes to aggressive dogs, in a way that's going to help? I think...
I'm going to put this one to bed really quickly.
Good.
Because...
Good, because I don't really understand the question.
As soon as he mentions positive punishment and negative reinforcement, he is framing that question in a behaviourism paradigm. And if you do that, then I believe, well, I know that you do as well, think that behaviourism is a reductionist view on what dogs
think and feel
are. And the problem with that is that you can fit so many different things into there. Now, we did a lot of going back to the original studies and research in the puppy lab, and we go in depth into this, including all the references and including quotes by people like Skinner himself, and actually look at what they originally said. And if you, as is commonly said in the dog training world, that positive punishment and negative reinforcement are the two things that you want to steer clear of, that you should never go anywhere near. And actually, if we look at the original work, that's factually incorrect. Mm-hmm. That's something that we, 5-10 years ago, well, 5 years ago, I'd have been saying the same thing. I'd have said positive punishment is the source of all things bad, but actually it's just adding something that decreases a stimulus. There's no emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to bite work and it comes to how a decoy works for the dog, I think it's quite important that you don't spend hours breaking down, well, that bit there, that could be considered negative reinforcement, and that bit there actually looks like that might be punishing the dog, because it's a waste of time, because it's a fluid machine. Behaviourism isn't made for that, and there's no point. What I would say is the only part of those theories that fit into my conceptualisation of what happens when I take my dog on the field is whether or not my dog leaves with a positive or a negative conditioned emotional response. Does my dog love it? Does he want to come back for more? Let's do it together again. It shouldn't be about breaking down these tiny little aspects of it into this framework that was made by someone in a lab for setting up experiments and measuring the outcomes of behaviour.
I'm going to throw this last bit in as well, because that answer is not going to be what most of our followers would like us to say, but tough. It's fucking. It is what it is. It's about a massive misconception when it comes to behaviourism and operant conditioning. But all of that work is already out there for us. You can see it. It's on the Puppy Lab. Just fucking go and look at the learning theory module.
It remains the ethical responsibility of man to raise and adequately train the dog. The applied methods must meet the standards of behavioural sciences, especially in regard to the breed. In order to achieve the upbringing, the training or training effect, it is important to not utilise force and to use positive methods for the dog. Furthermore, it is imperative to decline the use of techniques that do not utilise the proper training, raising and training aids. Using a dog for dog sport has to be orientated to his capabilities, his competitive spirit and his willingness. Influencing the dog's training capabilities through the use of medication or animal cruelty must be avoided. One must carefully acknowledge the capabilities of his dog. To demand work of a dog that does not have the capability to do so contradicts every ethical level of consciousness. Only someone who takes the responsibility to be a true friend to his dog will take a healthy and capable dog to trial, competition and training. That's an exciting prospect.
It is.
That's very novel.
Absolutely. It's an exciting prospect, unless they don't do fuck all about it.
Yeah. Can you tell people what your page is and what your Instagram is and that kind of thing, so that if people want to follow you and see what you're doing with the confidence boost stuff and with your gangster collies as well as with your Mally, they can find you?
Okay, so my Facebook page is Temprament Dogs, where we focus mainly on training companion dogs. We also have TNT dogs, which are basically my gangsta sheepdogs. On Instagram, Temperament Dogs, TNT Dogs, and my private Instagram page is Malinois Driving License, which I discovered today. And over there, I will be focusing more about posting content relating to the dog sports exclusively.
I like that. Right, so as always, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. Do so now. Hit the subscribe button down there. There's a little bell next to it as well, so toggle that on to make sure you get notifications of when we upload. And we will be doing so this year on a regular basis. So make sure you don't miss out.
Super duper. Bye.